and the Todd Family YouTube video, wherever you are, whatever you may be doing. Thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd Family part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. If you jump on here live here on this Friday evening, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section. Down below, make sure to give the video a like, a thumbs up. If you have not yet subscribed, please do so and share the video on all social media platforms. I know a lot of people are out and about tonight, either at a high school football game or heading home from a high school football game. Good evening, Kevron. Glad to have you here as always, but don't worry, just like I do every week during high school football season, we'll be running down the scores across North Georgia, Northeast Georgia, the upstate of South Carolina, coming up sometime before the weekend is over. Hey there, Marcus. Glad to have you here. But tonight, I want to talk about week 0 in college football, which comes your way tomorrow. So this is the last sleep until February with no football. Now, of course, week 1 will start on Thursday, and of course, it'll go Thursday night, Friday night, all day Saturday, and then pretty much all day Sunday. Not quite as many games on Sunday, but still shortly after church until bedtime, there'll be college football on. And then, of course, there's also a game on Labor Day night because, the NFL starts a week after college football. So on Labor Day, Monday night, there's always a college football game. And thank you, Marcus. I appreciate that. So there'll be week 1 starting on Thursday. So tomorrow is week 0, but just like last year's week 0, there's games on, and there's a game in every time slot. So once noon gets here, there's college football on up until you go to bed tomorrow night, but just not a lot of great games. Now, if you recall, last year, week 0, the game in Dublin, Ireland was Georgia Tech and Florida State. And, of course, Florida State, was ranked, I think, number 10 going into the season, and Georgia Tech and Florida State played that game in Dublin, Ireland. And I want to say Georgia Tech won with a field goal either there toward the very end or maybe its time expired, and it looked like, hey, that's an upset. Florida State's a top 10 team until Florida State wound up 2-10. But nevertheless, the game was in Dublin, and it came down to the wire, so hopefully we'll have that kind of success tomorrow with another game in Dublin, Ireland. Hey there, Buckets. Glad to have you here. And hey there, Got 'em. Glad to have you here because tomorrow's Dublin, Ireland game is a Big 12 matchup with Iowa State at Kansas State. Both teams are ranked. A lot of people have one or both of these teams in the Big 12 a championship game. I have neither of them in the Big 12 a championship game. I don't think Iowa State finishes top 5 in the conference. I don't think Kansas State does either. So I don't think either one of these teams is good enough to be ranked when the season's over with. But I think it'll be a good game. And Buckets, you're a Minnesota fan. Well, glad to have you here from Minnesota. Tell your friends, tell your family all about the channel. I'd love to have some Minnesota people, whether they're Golden Gophers or Viking fans or both, here on the channel. So I believe, Buckets, you're the first person, at least to my knowledge, that's watching the channel from Minnesota. I know I've had people from California, New York, Florida, Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, Texas, Oklahoma, Trinidad and Tobago, Bulgaria, Belgium, Russia. But I think you're the first one from Minnesota, so glad to have you here. And we talk college football, talk NFL, college basketball, some NBA, some Major League Baseball, NASCAR, wrestling. If it's a major sport, we talk about it here on the channel. And you're a Okie fan. Well, Bob, you're the second person that I know of, to my knowledge, here on the channel that's been a Oklahoma fan. We have one Oklahoma State fan, but you're the second Oklahoma fan. We had a guy named Jason that was on here probably, I don't know, earlier this year, maybe late last year, that was a Oklahoma fan. So glad to have you here, Bob. But Iowa State, Kansas State, I think both teams are probably 7-5 or 8-4. Matter of fact, I predicted Kansas State to go 8-4, and that's probably about what Iowa State does, maybe 7-5. So these are two equally matched teams. There'll be the noon game in Dublin, Ireland. That game will be on ESPN. Kenneth, glad to have you here. And I say good luck to your Gators this season because I'm not a Gator fan, but I'm not a Gator hater. When they play Georgia, I'll pull for them. But outside of that, Florida wins, I don't care. Florida loses, I don't care. But I'll pull for them when they play Georgia, and I'll pull for them if and when they play Alabama. That's the only two times of the year I pull for Florida. Outside of those two games, doesn't matter to me. And then 4 o'clock, we have Idaho State and UNLV. And that game is not going to be on TV. And Kenneth, matter of fact, Kenneth, I'm glad you brought that up because last night I came on here and I did my rundown of my season predictions because dating back to probably April, I've done 20 early predictions for football, 19 in college and 1 in the NFL. Well, I've tried to go back and write down each team and what I had their predicted record to be because I'm not going to memorize it all. And I do this every year, but I never write it down. This year I thought, no, I'm going to write it down this year. And Bucket said his best friend moved to near Clemson back in 6th grade, which was 3 years ago. Well, Buckets, your best friend picked a fantastic place to move to. I do not live in Clemson, have never lived in Clemson, but I would love to live in Clemson. I love the community, but I can't say that I have experience living there because I don't. But I don't know how you wouldn't love to live there because it's not a very big place, but it's very, very, very nice people. And Buckets, it makes sense that you would hate Boston. But I did my Florida prediction, and I guess I did it back in May or June, and I said in that prediction that Florida would be 7-5, so I'm going to stick with it. And I mentioned that yesterday. I'm not going to change any of my predictions, but I'm not the type of person that comes on here all the time when somebody gets beat and says, oh, they got beat because their receiver was out, or oh, they got beat because their cornerback was out, or they got beat because the linebacker was out. Because in no sport in the history of time ever, no matter what sport it is, has any team gone through a whole season without injuries. It happens all across sports. But quarterback is the one position where, you know, you might can use that as a legitimate excuse. You can't use, you know, your running back or your linebacker or, you know, your wide receiver, but you can use your quarterback. And I even mentioned this yesterday that when I said Florida would go 7-5, I thought it's because Lagway would stay healthy. If DJ can't stay healthy, they're not going 7-5. But if you played that game called Operation growing up, that's kind of DJ Lagway. You grab that thing and touch it, and no matter what part you touch, it's going to go, because every part of that man's body has been hurt sometime between February and now. And got him. I'm not a Boston fan, but I'm not a Boston hater. One thing you'll learn about me is that I love sports in general. I always have since I was 11 years old. But I'm not the type of person that gets overly excited if my team wins and gets overly down if my team loses. It's sports. My life's not on the line. Life goes on whether I win or lose. I really don't care. I love to watch sports, whether it's football, baseball, basketball. But if my team wins, I just turn the TV off and go home. If my team loses, I turn the TV off and go home. It just doesn't matter to me. And you're 11. Well, got them. Glad to have you here. I had one young fella on here a couple of months ago that was 9, and one young lady who was 13. So you're not the youngest person here on the channel. I think I had another guy named Mikey, I think, who was 6 that was on here a few months back as well. And Kenneth, you're 14. So good to have all of you young people here in the chat room on this Friday night. But the only team in any sport that I really care about is Clemson. And the reason I say that is, even as a Clemson fan, if you cut me, I bleed orange. And, in my house, every room has something Clemson in it. Every car I've ever owned has Clemson stickers on it. So I say I'm a Clemson fan. But if I watch a Clemson game, if my wife's not around when the game's over, she'll say, did they win? Because I don't holler, I don't scream, I don't shout. All that stuff to me is useless. Your team doesn't get extra points because you holler. It just doesn't make sense. But Clemson's the only team that I go out and I constantly buy merchandise for. I've got Clemson hats, Clemson shirts, Clemson socks, Clemson shorts. Basically, if it can go on your body and it's Clemson, I either have it or have had it. That's it. The only other team in my life I've ever bought anything for is the Braves. That's it. So I guess you could say those are really the only 2 teams I have a vested interest in. But I don't hate any team, because to me, sports are fun. And if you are so into sports you hate somebody, I think you follow sports a little bit too much. It's not a life or death situation. And Bucket said he's not a Boston fan, but he's not a Boston. Oh, you are a Boston hater. Like you're talking Prime Warriors versus Celtics rivalry. I've never really, and maybe it's because my NBA team is generally flat out awful, but I love basketball, but I don't, especially now that the game's changed and there's no longer defense in basketball. It's just up and down the court and shoot all night long. I like basketball, but I've never followed basketball the way I follow baseball and football. But even as a Braves fan in baseball, their rivalries are the Mets and the Phillies. I don't hate the Mets. I don't hate the Phillies. And as a Clemson fan, maybe if I lived in the upstate it'd be different. But as a Clemson fan, I'm supposed to hate South Carolina. But to me, they're not good enough to hate. They're just an average team that only beats Clemson in football on occasion. They've never won a national title in football. To me, they just aren't worthy enough to hate. I think you really have to accomplish something to be hated. You can't hate a team for being average, but, I really don't hate any team or any player. Maybe it's because I just don't get that too into sports. I watch it for the enjoyment, and I watch it to escape reality, but I've never seen my team lose and threaten to kill somebody. To me, it's just a game. It's not that important. And Buckets, I'm kind of like Mike Miller. If you ever seen Mike Miller play, Mike Miller could shoot threes all day long, but that's all he could do. That's me. I could shoot threes all day long, but don't ask anything else. I could shoot threes all day long. The Twins can't pull a win together. Well, you're on the same pace as the Braves this year, because the Braves have made the playoffs every year since 2017, but that ends this year. They are awful this year. They've played a little bit better as of late, which all that's going to do is now in the offseason they're going to say, we ain't got to make any changes. We've seen in August how good we can play when we all play together. We're bringing the same team back. And the only change you're going to see is Iglesias will be gone, Ozuna will be gone. The rest of the roster is going to be exactly the same. But how the Braves can have the same team as last year and the year before and be this bad, I don't know, but they are terrible this year. But Fresno State and Kansas play at 6:30. That game is on Fox. Sam Houston State and Western Kentucky play at 7 o'clock and that game is on the CBS Sports Network. And then 7:30 on CBS, we have Stanford at Hawaii. Buckets, I could dunk if the goal was 8 foot, but I'm not very tall. I'm good looking, but I'm not very tall. You can't have it all. I could probably dunk an 8 foot goal, but I'm not very tall and I can't jump, so I could never jump high enough to dunk a 10 foot goal or 12 foot goal. But 8 foot, maybe. If not, I could use a ladder for 8 foot. I could dunk that one. And I can play defense against a 75-year-old person that's old and slow, and that's about it. But I can shoot threes all day long. You watch Mike Miller, and that's me. Let me stand behind 3-point line, just shoot threes. The rest of y'all can do everything else. I'll shoot threes. So we got a noon game, a 4 o'clock game, a 6:30 game, a 7 o'clock game, and a 7:30 game. So pretty much just about it's one game in each time slot starting at noon. So it's just enough to wet your whistle and get you ready for Thursday night. But one more sleep and college football will be here. So Buckets, you and Bob, hopefully y'all have subscribed to the channel. Hopefully you tell your friends, tell your family all about the channel, and I would greatly, greatly, greatly appreciate it. Where is Fresno State? It is in California. And at one time, they were really, really, really good at football. They just never got talked about because they're in one of the smaller conferences. But then the coach they had back in the day retired, and ever since then they've just been average. And you're in California with, Stanford and California and USC and UCLA, but it is in California. So any thoughts on any of this, please feel free to let me know. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. There is a new variety of sweet corn called pirate sweet corn. It cost a buccaneer. And that does it for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Buckets, we've got to get you into college football. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them.